Chapter 1. My Fire, Your Guidance. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! A kneeling Braixen slammed her fists into the concrete. Her teeth clenched and her shoulders hunched up. The Lucario she had been battling stepped back, wide-eyed and slack-jawed at the outburst. He looked over his shoulder to his trainer, a lanky young woman who only shook her head and shrugged. The aura Lucario sensed surrounding Braixen was a quaking, intense orange glow that seemed ready to burst like a supernova. As the initial shock brushed past and a wave of indignance rose through him, Lucario clutched his paw over his chest, stepped towards the Braixen, and narrowed his eyes at her. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. A real warrior loses with dignity. Braixen stopped flailing. Her arms slumped down. The aura surrounding her eased from orange to a shuddering blue as she hugged herself, clenching her eyes shut even tighter. As she let out a shuddering breath, Lucario looked around at the humans who had been watching the match, but most of them weren't even looking his way, much less judging the Lucario over his harsh tone. They were either carrying bags of groceries slung over their arms, slipping into their cars, or had already returned to scrolling on their Rotom phones. But as the Braixen's trainer, you felt your jaw clench when the Lucario barked at her. You couldn't understand what the Pokemon were saying, but you could observe their body language and tone. Braixen's whole body shook when Lucario yelled at her, and she kept whimpering, quieter and weaker by the second. Once you were certain the battle was over, you marched over to your Braixen, knelt beside her, and placed a firm hand on her shoulder. That was a good match, Amber. You almost had him. She didn't even move. This close, you could hear her sniffling. Oh, geez. You pushed yourself upright, and stretched out your hand to help her up. You've had some rough fights today. Why don't we go and get ice cream for a job well done? Would you like that? Amber remained stiff as a statue, occasionally shaking as cold chills ran through her. There was something familiar, almost personal, in the way she trembled. Amber wasn't sick. Before the last few matches, she'd been skipping everywhere, letting out happy little squeals and trills, and sometimes latching onto you to nuzzle against your shoulder. No, her body had gone into mild shock. Thoughts were swirling in Amber's mind, and they had her very upset. It's going to be okay. You're doing a great job, and together we're going to... Before you could finish, she bounded up, throwing her arms around you and pressing tight against you. She rubbed her cheek against your chest with tiny, sharp whines. You reached over to pet Amber, noting the way her ears folded back at your touch. Oh, Amber. You whispered her name with a silky, soft tone. Are you two all right? Tessa, the Lucario's trainer, came up, planting her hands on her hips. She was a tall, thin blonde, with pale skin, sky-blue eyes, and side-swept hair. Your Pokemon seems to be taking this loss rather hard, friend. She crossed her arms and tilted her head. You murmured to Tessa. This is her 4th loss today in a row. 8 in total. Tessa snorted. Any semblance of concern replaced with a wide, toothy grin. Well, one or both of you is stupid. What do you expect, taking an unevolved Pokemon into the Ferrum League? You glanced at Braixen. You couldn't see her face, but she was squeezing tighter now. It felt like you were going to snap in half at the waist, but you resisted the urge to even grunt in discomfort. You turned to Tessa, jerking your head to motion her over. Tessa gave a disapproving shake of her head and had an amused, belittling smirk plastered to her face, but she still came. What is it? Don't tell me your Braixen is self-conscious, too. You narrowed your eyes at the trainer as you curved your fingers to gently scratch Amber behind the ears. When she started easing up, you leaned over and whispered to Tessa. I would have evolved her first if I could have. Tessa pulled back, folding her arms behind her head. Well, what in Arceus name is that supposed to mean? At this point, Amber's posture had loosened, her breathing had steadied, and she had eased up on the death grip. You offered her a few last head pats for good measure. Are you ready to go back into your Pokeball? She peeled away and gave one firm nod. As soon as you pressed the latch, Amber was absorbed into the Pokeball in a flash of light. Only after the latch clicked shut, you turned to Tessa with a hardened, drawn-out expression. Amber can't evolve. Ever. Tessa scoffed at that. What are you talking about? She's got one more evolution ahead of her, and it's into a freaking Delphox. She'll become way stronger and be able to control the trajectory of her flames with her mind. Tessa made believe she was a flame-wielding psychic by making wide-sweeping gestures representing swirling fire with one hand, as she pointed to her forehead with the other. You leaned in to speak with a hushed tone. We went to see a Pokemon doctor years ago, and found out that Braixen is incapable of evolving further. Something about certain cells not containing the right properties. Tessa's cocky smile fell off her face. Are you serious? Then what did you bring her to a fighting tournament like this for, you dumbass? You slid your Pokeball back into your pocket, rubbing your forehead. I don't know. Braixen insisted. Tessa shook her head. Well, get that girl all the ice cream she wants then, 'cause Arceus knows she deserves it. You forced yourself to smile at Tessa, and forced yourself to say thank you. Although you didn't let it show, even offering common courtesy to this harpy made your chest clench. You started walking to the ice cream parlor, praising whatever designers in this metropolis chose to advertise everything with giant flashing neon signs. Without them, all the skyscrapers and the corners of every sidewalk would have looked the same, and before long, you'd have been reduced to waiting for nightfall, praying for a clear sky, and trying to guess which white dot in the sky was the Arceus-damned North Star, all just to get your bearings. With patience, you made your way to the Swirly Poffin ice cream parlor, the humblest restaurant you'd seen in this glorified shopping mall of a city. Unlike the other businesses, which advertised with heaven-bound signposts that must have been hammered into the concrete by prehistoric alpha Pokemon, the Swirly Poffin was satisfied with a sign right above the modest 6-foot door. The message this sent was clear. We don't want every jackass in Neo City trying to cram their fat butts in here during lunch rush. But if you'd like a place to get away from the chaos of the big city, you're welcome inside. You couldn't help smiling. This restaurant was the only place in Neos that felt like the small town of Twin Leaf where you grew up, and where you received your first Pokemon. The Pokeball in your pocket started shaking. You wondered if she could already smell all 42 sweet, creamy, melty flavors. You pressed the latch to let Braixen out. She always preferred opening the door for herself anyway. There were only a few people inside, and one woman standing behind the cash register. You noticed her hide a tablecloth under the counter when you walked in. No doubt she was the only person working the front counter at the moment, and was just about to wipe crumbs and trash off one of the tables before you so rudely came in. You made a mental note to order quickly, then knelt down next to Amber's ear and whispered, "What would you like?" Her oversized ear twitched. She stroked her chin with her paw, glossing over the menu before pointing to a golden brown picture of a 2-scoop caramel coffee deluxe with chocolate toppings. You couldn't help but chuckle at the order. Amber was an adult, but she didn't need the caffeine. You told the cashier her order and ordered a chocolate fudge sundae for yourself. "Certainly, it will just be a moment." The young woman bowed at the waist, folding her tiny hands over her apron. She punched the order into the POS system, and with a swish of her braided pink hair, spun on her heel and sauntered into the kitchen. You tapped Amber on the shoulder, causing her to jolt before looking up at you. "Relax, I was just going to suggest we go find a seat." You chuckled. She nodded and pointed to a booth by the window. You wondered why Amber chose this specific table, so once you were both seated, you scanned everything, eyes darting between the ordinary, slightly sticky table to the pink sugar packets for tea, to the rustling bushes outside. Then you noticed. You didn't see it, but felt it. A warmth like sinking into a hot bath on a muggy summer morning. Amber's smooth fur shimmered in the sunbeam, even better than a supermodel's skin when caked in makeup and standing under the runway spotlight. Her eyes were also twinkling, and it was unfair how adorable it was. "Your order's up." You almost sighed in disappointment when the cashier called for you, but made it up to yourself by stealing a few sidelong glances at Amber while you went to get the ice cream. Besides, it was always worth it when Amber took that first spoonful. You winced as she squealed in delight, a shrill, unnatural cry that hit frequencies you weren't even certain most humans could hear. Still, it was undeniably joyful. especially paired with the way Amber cupped her cheeks in those adorable little paws, and grinned so wide you worried her face might split open. Seeing her this delighted always sent waves of euphoria through your body until you felt as light as a drifloon. You scooped into your own ice cream, but while bringing it to your mouth, saw a second spoon with colorful caramel ice cream and chocolate toppings coming for you. Your jaw dropped. Braixen winked, wiggling the spoonful at you like bait in front of your lips. You weren't quite sure why, but in that moment, your heart stopped. You inched forward, wrapped your lips around the ice cream, and took a bite. You felt excited, thrilled. Your face was burning as the creamy texture slid down your throat. But the only thing melting was your brain. Thank you. You might have imagined it, but you could have sworn you saw Amber